Welcome to the Open Door Policy. Each week on this podcast, we sit down with a different guest and talk about a letter. Archbishop Vigneron's Unleash the Gospel pastoral letter.
Let's do it. Let's talk about it.
All right.
Be about it.
Each guest we have on this show we think is living it out in a new and exciting way. Before we get started, if you like what you hear and you want to help us be part of this movement to unleash the gospel, be sure to subscribe and share our podcast with your family and friends. And while you're at it, leave us a review on iTunes. This time on Open Door Policy, we sit down with Andy Gardner, a father of 5 who is witnessing with and in and through his family and sharing his love of music and the gifts God has given him in his corner of the Archdiocese of Detroit.
Hey, Andy. Hey, Father Steve.
Hello.
Hi, Danielle. Hi, Andrew.
Big
Hello.
question on my mind.
Yeah?
Father Steve, you had any graces in your life recently?
I have. Yeah, God's been really good to me. He's just putting on my heart a little bit more a desire to spend time with him in prayer. Like, as my life, I'm probably like most of us, as we get busier and busier, like that is the first thing that I feel like, oh yeah, I should take time from. And the Lord's just been really convicting my heart to say, no, protect that time. Whatever you give to me, I'll return 30, 50, and 100-fold. And that's been really convicting, but also really joyful. So that's a real grace in my life.
Thanks be to God. Awesome. Andy, how are you doing today?
Super duper.
Super
are you
duper from
ready?
the Uper.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Can you do this in accent? Are you ready for rapid fire questions?
I am. Rock and roll.
I'm going to start us off. What is your most used emoji?
Probably the poo one.
Spoken like a father.
The chocolate ice cream one.
Okay, what would be your walk-up music?
Probably something by the Beastie Boys.
What is your favorite piece of religious art?
There's a half-finished Michelangelo statue in a museum behind the Duomo in Florence.
The Deposition, an unfinished sculpture by Michelangelo, is in the Duomo in Florence and therefore known as the Florentine Pieta.
Andy, what do you think is overrated?
The internet.
What literary character would you want to be friends with?
Frodo.
Release him, or I'll cut your throat.
Good. What's your favorite hymn? Any churchy song.
City of God.
Nice. What season would you be?
Fall.
Fall.
What is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Be excellent to each other by Bill and Ted.
No way. What is your favorite Bible story?
Probably John chapter 6, the bread of life.
The discourse.
Yeah.
And what non-traditional pet would you have?
Maybe a cricket. I don't know, something that might die soon.
Wow. Oh
Something
my
that might
gosh.
die soon.
Dude.
Not a big,
All
we are
right,
not
I love
big
it.
Did you see
people.
that Twitter thread about that guy who ordered like crickets off of Amazon to feed his pet, but then he thought they would come in like a bag in the box, but they didn't. It was just crickets in a box. They opened the box and the crickets went everywhere. That could be you.
Okay,
The
bad
old
choice.
box
Bad
full
choice.
crickets.
Surprise.
It was rapid fire questions. I was on the spot.
No, that's
right.
great.
Do.
Andy, what do you love about John chapter 6?
So to me, just that it's so blunt, as whenever I read that, I'm like, how is there any debate that Jesus was not saying, hey, I'm here, this is me. You need to come to communion. You need to, receive me and be part of me. Like
Just this bread and wine is not ordinary bread and wine.
that we need
This
to
is
eat
my
it and chew it, not
flesh
like,
and my blood.
and even to the point of, him doubling down on that. And people are like, you're nuts. And they're starting to walk away. And he's like, how about you guys? It was just the most, there's a lot of things where he could have said something like,
Right.
JK.
Listen, you just, you just misunderstood,
Clarification.
But he just keeps doubling down and doubling down and doubling down. And, I feel like that's just, words to live by, for us to just draw us closer to the Eucharist. Right there. So
I feel like the real teaser for this one is this half-finished statue. Tell me more.
Yeah, so my wife and I went to Rome and Florence for our honeymoon. So yeah, in this museum right behind the Duomo, we just happened to be wandering through, and there's this huge statue. There's like a lot of speculation, but it's Nicodemus and Mary taking Jesus off the cross or into the tomb, but it's half finished. And the rumor is that at some point he was working on this later in life and got mad at it. There was some like seam through the marble and like started destroying the thing and like knocked an arm off of Jesus. And
Wow.
And so somebody had taken this and started kind of finishing it after his death, but it's still half finished. You can still see these chisel marks in it. And, you know, for me, like as a musician and an artist, you know, like there's something about that, you know, like that half finished, you know, but it's such a beautiful thing as well. You know, just kind of motivating too for like, you know, finishing everything. There's as many things as Michelangelo did. Here's this example of something that he got mad about and tried destroying, which is kind of funny. But it's half done, and you get to really see like, you know, and I'm not a, you know, artistic portraitish type guy, right? But to see all these chisel marks in this thing and to think how monumental a task that was to then just be like, no, I'm done, and walk away from it. It just still astounds me.
Sculpture is such a fascinating art form. I also love how in Rome, it's just kind of like, oh, and by the way, here's this incredible piece of art that's just like tucked right here. And you're like, what?
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And the internet's overrated. Does that mean you're off the grid?
No, not at all. But I'm very reluctant user of it as far as, you know, in any sort of social media. I do, but man, there's just as much bad news and bad information out there as there is good news. And it worries me some days for society and my kids and that type of stuff, just the misinformation that abounds as well. So.
Well, that and as disciples, it can just be this like, it can suck all of your time or all of what you care about, or it can paralyze you too, because there's just like never-ending criticism out there too.
For sure.
And it can be very, very paralyzing.
Yep.
Speaking of your favorite literary character who you'd want to be a friend with, Frodo, right? Because he was also faced with interesting times. Oh,
Lord of the Rings, you know, just that thing.
Wow.
So,
Just kidding.
wow.
no, so I don't know. It just popped in my mind. That was a big book when I was growing up. My uncle's was big pushing that series. So,
Have you seen
big
the
fan.
movies?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Are the movies faithful to the book in your mind?
Mildly. My uncle would say absolutely not.
Okay.
So,
But they're better than the Hobbit movies.
yes, probably. Yes,
It's a
I would
low
have to
bar.
go there. I would have to go there.
Nice. Now, is The City of God your favorite hymn? When did you first hear it?
So I used to like playing that. So that's playing guitar at college at St. Al's up in Michigan Tech, and that's where I met my
UP
wife.
shout out.
Yeah, shout out to St. Al's.
dang.
But yeah, I just, for whatever reason, playing that song on guitar, it was just a song that I could actually play really well.
Yeah.
The words just always stuck in my head.
Awesome. Thanks for answering our rapid fire questions. All right, Andy, we want to just hear a little bit about what God has done in your life, or, you know, a little bit of your testimony about how God's worked to make you his disciple.
How you fell in love with your wife.
Yeah, there you go.
Wow, intro wasn't good enough for me. Thanks,
we
Danielle.
can
Well,
start there.
I was ready for the love story, and then you're like, okay, talk about whatever. I'm like, no, let's go for it.
So, okay, yeah. So, I met my wife at St. Al's up at Michigan Tech. We were both going to school there. Father Larry intruded us.
Father Larry Van Dam.
And he will still tell anyone he meets that he's the one who hooked us up. So he cajoled my wife into joining my musical group there that was covering some of the masses. And she started singing with us, and that was kind of the start of it. So I even did our marriage prep up there with Father Larry, and I remember clearly there was one part where he said, "How many kids you guys think you're going to have? You open to kids?" And I said, "Well, 2, it seemed like a good number." And me and Chris never forget it. Like he sat back and he goes, 2 seems lonely. And at the time, we're just like, you are bananas, man. Like, there's no way. Like, 2 seems like a lot of kids to me at this point, right? So, fast forward, a few years now, we got a bunch of kids. And so, yeah.
Is there an exact number on the amount of kids you have?
So we have five kids right now,
Nice.
ages 12 to 2, and another one on the way,
Oh, congrats.
November here. So,
Yeah.
we've been much
I believe
much
the
more
term
open.
you used off air was a pile of kids.
Absolutely. There are a lot of them running around. We were a loud, gregarious family at times when we were by ourselves, and in amongst other humans, largely extroverted, except our daughter Lucy, who really breaks that mold big time. So that's a shock to the system for the rest of us sometimes. But yeah, so we got married and we actually went on our honeymoon to Rome, and Father Larry had actually mentioned it, and we were able to get an audience on one of the Wednesday audiences with JP2. So this was December of 2004, so about 4 months or so before he passed away.
Yeah.
And it was, we were pretty deep in our faith at that point, and but there was something about being there, just not expecting this at all. Like, we had to wear our wedding clothes. She had to wear a wedding gown to this audience, and we sat right up front. And there's just people everywhere, just screaming and shouting. And he, he was declining in health, and they kind of wheeled him in, and the place went nuts, like rock star, absolute, blowing the roof off the place. And I remember us sitting up front, just like really not knowing at all what's going on and being stunned, but you could just feel this absolute holiness. But I mean, he was having a hard time talking. I mean, people would have to stop once in a while and come over and wipe drool from his mouth even. I mean, he was getting that poor in health, but he still addressed the crowd in 7 languages.
Dang.
I mean, it was still just one of the most memorable things. And we got to go up and kneel in front of him, get a blessing, kiss his ring.
Wow.
Just remember walking away, the both of us like, what happened? It just didn't even seem real. But yeah, then, a few months later, because that was one of the last audiences that he did, and really powerful knowing that we had been able to actually meet him and, hold his hand and everything. It's something that I think is really, whether we know it or not, maybe his intercession has just really, really guided our family, throughout this last, 15 years or so here. So,
Wow.
So yeah, and we actually made it back to his canonization then 10 years later, because it was our 10-year anniversary, and so we went back with about 850,000 of our closest friends, and just crowded in there. So that was another memorable.
Did you have
part
much of a
that,
devotion, or had you read anything by John Paul II kind of before?
Absolutely
that?
nothing.
Okay,
nothing. I mean, and I think that's the way. I have a lot of stories like that where God just kind of drags me along by the nose and like, hey, you're going to remember this later.
Right.
Yeah.
But this is going to mean more a year from now than it does right now. So no, I mean, that was really my first, he'd been the Pope my entire life. I was born in 78, I think a month before he became Pope. So, I mean, my entire life he was the Pope, but just not a real strong connection there until I'm literally kneeling in front of him going, whoa, this is different. So,
Father Steve told me that you've made some pretty radical decisions about family life. Can you tell me a little bit about those?
Yeah, many. Primarily, I guess lately in the last year and a half here, work-life balance, that type of stuff. As we've had the, through the years, we've been having these kids, and just the amount of attention that needs my job was always really demanding. Quite a bit of travel, but a lot of pressure, managing a large group of people. And by rights, what a lot of people would think is like, a great career, like the best everything.
Dream.
Yes, advancement. And, but there was just this part of me that for years was like, man, something's missing. I'm just being pulled further and further away from my family. So, about a year and a half ago, I just, an opportunity came up to take a different job, kind of at a corporate office. And instead of, a few hundred people, that I'm responsible for, it was like 2. And, just a little bit less travel, a little more flexibility in some of that stuff. And, it's been pretty amazing. It was a gut-wrenching decision,
Well, because like the balance you're talking about, I think, is like providing for your family, right?
Yeah.
You send your kids to Catholic school.
Yep.
And that kind of, taking care of your family financially, but also like your desire and what God put on your heart to be a father who can be around and who can spend time with his kids.
Yeah. So stuff like that, it's something that we really wanted to be committed to, but yeah, there's those financial things, and these kids are getting older. They eat us out of house and home. So yeah, I mean, we're trying to balance that whole taking care of the family, but and it's not even like I still travel just as much, but there's like this stress thing that just
Yeah.
kind of disappeared. That when I'm home, I'm able to be more present with the kids and my family. It's just, it was totally worth it. Totally worth it. And in hindsight, as big of a decision as it was, I kind of regret not doing it, a few years sooner. Now that I know, it was fine. Everything worked out. God just drug me along, and it worked out for our family. So, yeah.
What would you say is like the biggest takeaway that God was trying to teach you through all that?
A lot of things. So, because I was always kind of looking at that job as like, man, this isn't really my thing. I'm doing it, and everyone says it's great, and I'm advancing and all that. But there was all these things along the way that were really interesting experiences, learning moments, classes that I was able to take, opportunities to stand up and speak in front of large crowds of people and present and really be a leader. And it's all stuff that I can see has, I've been able to now leverage, through evangelization initiatives and different things like that, that freedom, like I will stand up in a room of 1,000 people at the drop of a hat. I don't have any hesitation with it now, but that's the type of stuff that this job, kind of walked me through and led me to. But at some point, I could tell God was like, okay, that's enough. We've prepped you. Let's send you off and, try something different for a minute here. So
Andy, I know you from being on an apostolate together called Awaken that was praise and worship and preaching, and you were one of the band leaders.
Right.
And you had some opportunity in that to kind of witness to your faith. And I remember being very impressed by, like, your palpable love for the Lord. Like, so you mentioned John chapter 6, but it seems like the Eucharist is a huge part of your faith life.
Yeah, for sure. Sometime in my youth, they were starting a 24/7 Eucharistic Adoration Chapel up there. And I remember for my grandpa, that was, he was constantly going, and just how big of a deal that was for him. And it wasn't until much later in life, I think until we were downstate here, that an opportunity came up to take a weekly adoration hour at St. Joe's. And man, I'll never give that up now. It's something where I remember the first few months, I'm like, okay, I'm going.
What's your time slot?
Right now, it's 5 a.m. on Mondays.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Get that week started off, man.
Absolutely, it's been perfect. I mean, like, even if I'm traveling for work or whatever I got going on, I can almost always still get in there, start my week off like that, and then get at it. But
give the Lord the first fruits of the week.
Yeah.
And entrust the rest to
for
Him.
sure. But yeah, I remember in adoration, they're thinking like, Lord, are you really here? After a little while, starting to realize, by going back and asking that question over and over and over, really getting some resounding, yeah, I'm here. And stuff like that at Awaken, something that was largely, it's centered around, Eucharistic adoration and the procession, and that, this 10 minutes of silence in the middle of it.
Right.
Just to be a part of something where you can see, because I was always in the band, right? So either up front or on the side or whatever. So you're able to see people's faces and to see that look when they realize, oh, Lord, you are here.
Yeah.
It's that, and I know because I had that same moment too, where you're like, wow, this is real. And I'm constantly trying to drag my kids even to that 5 a.m. hour.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, for real. Even like this. So this week, it was Sunday night, and we were going to bed, and the kids were like, can we come with you? Can we come with you?
Oh my gosh, it's
and
so cute.
We went to bed. It's like 8:30, something like that. But that's late when you got to get up at 4.
It is.
And so I woke up at 4, and I'm like, I feel awful. There's no way I'm waking those kids up because they're going to rip us apart the rest of the day,
Yeah.
But I got home, they're like, did you try to wake us up? But did you
Oh
not?
my
Like,
gosh.
what happened? Because we didn't go,
That's awesome, Andy. We're going to
Yeah.
talk about Witness a Family in just a minute, but thanks for sharing your testimony with us.
So Andy, we were talking a little bit before we started recording about how you're kind of looking at two things in witnessing, in the witness of your families. And we're going to look at marker 7.3 specifically in this Unleash the Gospel letter. So how, number one, everything you're doing right now is in some way forming your children. And then also, like, what does that mean, though, to be living it now?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a big thing we're trying to, honestly, trying to raise our kids right. And, whatever that means, right? There's no manual for parenthood that I've found yet, but
especially in like the 21st century, all the challenges,
right?
Yeah.
But yeah, just trying to, trying to build a foundation with them that lets them know the backbone of our Catholic faith for really what it is, And I really try to, whenever I'm talking to them, my wife and I, the history of the Catholic Church and the some of the more foundational elements of why it is that, we believe things, the Eucharistic adoration, those types of things,
Sure.
Just to understand that, at some point you're going to grow up, you're going to leave the house, and somebody's going to be like, I don't believe that that's really Jesus there in the Eucharist. And if that's going to be a normal discussion to have with people, but to really be exposed to that over and over and again, to be able to kind of form their own experiences with it, so that it's less just, oh, yeah, that's something my parents taught me, but, something they've seen, they've been able to be around it, they've been able to really internalize it a little bit better, So yeah, and they're all very logical kids. My engineering degree, my wife and I both went to Michigan Tech, right? So so for the kids, we're always trying to lay out the argument. There's always questions. It's one question after another, and after another. And if we don't get to the bedrock of that, they are not with us. They've got to know everything about everything. So yeah, we're always trying to do that because, you can already see. Our oldest is 12, and they're already getting into situations where they're sharing things, they're evangelizing to friends and just very nonchalantly, like, well, why would I not? Why would I not tell my new friend that, Mass is on Sunday and we're going, and no, it's not bad luck if we miss Mass, and, and we would go to confession if we had to, and
right.
He's able to eloquently just say all these things. He was having a discussion with this kid the other day, and my wife overheard it, and she said, hey, buddy, thanks. It's awesome you were able to share that with him. He's like, what do you mean? Why would I not?
So interesting.
It was great. And we were like high-fiving as parents,
Yeah.
So
So one of the lines in this section is the witness of a joyful family life rooted in the gospel can be a spiritual oasis for people.
Dude, I underlined that too.
In contemporary society, right? So the role, you talked a little bit about your job as a dad and your wife, as the leaders of your family, helping your children and trying to live this out with integrity, right? To say, this is how we operate because this is what disciples do. But the way that becomes a witness outward too, that it becomes this oasis, the spiritual oasis to our society that is just filled with the need for radical witnesses. Do you see that in your life, or maybe even in times in other families as well? Like, hey, there's something really beautiful there that we're trying to do or is calling us to greater holiness.
Yeah, for sure. Just when we get out with the five of us, it's a scene sometimes,
Right.
We're pretty bold about I know people, ever since we had kids, we don't go out to eat anymore, and we will pile into a restaurant and be like, table for 7,
Right.
and pray before meals, stuff like that. You can tell, Sunday we went out and some guy, before we even started eating, comes up and he's like, your kids are so well behaved. This is great. Thank you for being here. And and once in a while, we've gotten free lunch out of the deal. Yeah, for sure. Just
unanticipated benefit,
right? Yeah. And I always picture somebody just like, hey, I want to cover that family's bill, and then seeing the bill and going, what?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. How many
eating,
chicken nuggets?
Wow. Yeah. So for real, but yeah. But yeah, even stuff like at Mass, we're more of a pile up into the front row. Second, third row, we are up in there.
Wow.
And I remember, so Archbishop Vigneron was on the podcast. I remember listening to that.
Last season.
And he was saying that, when he was younger, they would almost leave some of the younger kids at home or
I know.
something like that.
Yeah, it's a very different approach, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, we just get right in there. And for two reasons. One, so to this whole topic of, part of it is I want our kids to be able to see this and understand this, and the other is to be a witness, right? And to have other people see that, hey, that family is right up there, and they're trying their best to pay attention and be that example.
And that's a huge part of witness, is witnessing even with things don't always go the way we want it to go, right?
Oh yeah, so you can easily go down in a blaze of glory by being in the third row, right? So it's it is all or nothing. Like some kid throws a fit, it's
a long walk.
If it goes well, it goes well. Otherwise, it's a big
back.
walk of shame to the back.
You know what though? Tying into this, I might have brought this up on another episode, but at the parish where I'm helping, we have the couples who are going to be married. They have to pick a mentor couple, someone that they know who have been married for longer than 5 years and are practicing Catholics. The amount of couples who are like, I don't know anyone, is there anyone that you could recommend? You're called to marriage and you don't know anyone who has been married for longer than 5 years.
That's interesting.
And is practicing Catholics, right? So there's that witness as well of like, even if someone like never pays for your lunch, right? They just like, they sit the 16th row in the back. But
They're
there's
watching.
still that as
For real.
well. Like, this can be done. I've seen it done. Even if it's 10 years down the road. Like, no, there were people, I've seen them before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that one family. Yeah.
Danielle, your family grew up strongly Catholic. I know you have 4 siblings.
I do. So I'm one of 5.
You're one of 5,
Yeah.
and they're all like, faith was an important part of your life growing up. How did the Center family witness?
So I was thinking about this today because, like, I love parties. And I was like, why do I love parties so much? And I was thinking that, so at my mom and dad's marriage prep, the priest was just giving them like life tips.
You were at their marriage
No, I
prep?
wasn't. No, I know this story. I know
okay.
this story. As he said, it's important for your family to have dinner together every night. This is like pre-kids, pre-family. So my parents, one of the first purchases they made furniture for their new house is this very, very, very nice table that has like these very easy pull-out leaves. Like the entirety of so there's 7 people in my immediate family, but my family's home, like someone once described it, they're like, when understanding the Center family's home, it's important to not think of it like a house and rather think of it as a hostel because you never know who's going to be there. And that's just kind of how we lived our life. Like whoever extra came, like pull out the extra leaves, we'll be fine. So I think that my mom has the gift of hospitality. So like that of like catching people and like bringing them in, that was like a huge part. And it was just like a natural thing like you're talking about. Like, oh, hey, like we didn't even ask to bring people home. We just did.
Wow.
What about Polis fam?
Yeah, we had, I'm one of 10, so there were 12 of us when we were all gathered. And even now, like, I think of, I can think now how we get together and how, like, crazy rowdy we are, loud and in public. And as the priest, I get to lead, like, grace. So we were out for Father's Day, and I was, there were, 20-some of us, and we had, like, a quarter of the restaurant. And the salad started to come, and we're like, "Hey, let's do grace." Like, all right, everyone, in the name of the Father. And it was like it's just become normal.
Yeah.
And I love that my nieces and nephews get to see that that's normal, and I love that like we all do that together, and that's just a little witness. Like, even if you're not Christian, it's about 15 seconds of this group over there praying. But as you were saying, it's an opportunity for people to see faith being lived out, and the witness of our like extended growing family when we get together, how we try to make, part of what we do is praying together.
There's also a bit, it talks in the letter about radical generosity in inviting people to share in family life. Do you, are there ways that you have seen like evangelization and witness in that experience as well?
Yeah. So, I mean, for us, like it's, I think God put something really on our hearts as far as a desire for evangelization, like one of the gifts of the Spirit, but it's so weird because we're introverts. And it's like, oh no, not that, but like feel really strongly.
So you and your wife are both introverts.
Yeah.
And 4 out of the 5 of your kids are introverts, right?
How old is the not introvert?
6.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
She hugs everybody. I mean, it's like we go to swim lessons, like you can only hug the coach once per lesson. Please stop hugging the coach. We'll get nothing done here. Yeah. So, but yeah, we really feel called to try and evangelize as well. So yeah, for us, it's almost the opposite of what you described as far as inviting people into your home and this and that. Like that's something that we have to really put some thought into that,
Sure.
and really push ourselves outside that comfort zone to do that.
But you do it in a different way,
So we do,
right?
Yeah. So we try to find other ways. So like I have a little recording studio in our basement that we kind of offer up as a free ministry to other musicians that are writing Christian Catholic music and inviting them in and hey, come over and have dinner with us. I mean, it might be pizza, but come on in and so yeah, we've done that with quite a few different people now to come through, just trying to find some ways that. It's a natural fit for us, right? Something that we already normally do, we do naturally, and we want to have as some sort of a, ministry outreach or whatever, and try and get people into our house and into that into that family, you know?
Yeah,
So.
I think that's really cool. As an extrovert, like a lot of evangelization is like meeting people, meeting new people, and getting to know them through that. But you do music, and so a lot of your evangelization is through like these gifts God has given you that you spend time, you hone, you craft, and then you share with the world. Tell us a little bit about your music.
I've always been playing music and writing music, and just in the last few 5 or 6 years, we've been trying to do more with the kids, as far as and maybe some of them aren't expressly Christian. There's one that has a prayer that my son wrote in it, but it's family life. Summertime. There's a song called "Summertime" and it's about the kids not wanting to go outside, and just staying inside, and but in the last year, I've been trying to really write some of the songs that I've been writing, just finish them and put them out there. Really take that leap of faith and say, you know what, Lord, if I'm only writing these songs so that once in a while somebody happens to stop by our house, to which we've already discussed, a lot of people don't stop by our house.
Right.
This is really not, I'm not using your gift, I need to be doing something with it. And whether they're good or bad or whatever, just put them out there. So I've been trying to do that more and put out a song a month and really share in that regard. Just stuff that's either about the saints or my faith journey or this or that, but just share it, put them out on YouTube and try and get out there in a way that gets me out of the house electronically, I guess.
Where and what's the name of it, or where can people find it?
AndyGardnerMusic.com just takes you to our YouTube site, funkyfamilyband.com.
Funky Family Band.
Yeah, Chris came up with that name, and it's stuck. And the studio Trastevere.com, after the Trastevere neighborhood in Rome, where Saint Cecilia her church is, and she's had a home there that is now rumored to be where the church is. So
have you noticed that your faith, like the church would say, the church exists for mission, right? So we're not we're fed by going out as well. Like this, this energizes us. Have you noticed a change in your faith from that kind of shift in how you do ministry?
Yeah. So I mean, I just over the last few years really have been more willing to just talk about my faith. Honestly, I would almost rather at sometimes talk about my faith than the weather. I just cocktail party, chit chat.
Well, that's a great way as an introvert to talk about something serious or to be left alone.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. I'm really boring, or we're going to talk about religion, one or the other.
Let's talk about Jesus. They either leave you alone or you get to talk about what you love.
So I mean, I'll be on an airplane and I'll try to say a rosary very
really?
visibly. Yeah, stuff like that, or read some blatantly Catholic book.
Oh, okay.
And one of the funnest things is when somebody says, how's your relationship with the Lord? And leads in with that. And I'm like, well, great. Let's talk about it,
Let's talk about John 6.
Honest to God, there was one flight that I got into a discussion with a guy and was talking about I just got right into talking about the Eucharist.
Wait, this guy was Catholic or this guy was not Catholic?
No, he was not Catholic. And the second I told him I was Catholic, I mean, he was like, well, let me grab my Bible and explain to you why.
Okay.
Yeah. So he was ready to.
Yeah,
he was ready to throw
debate.
down.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was cool, and it was. I mean, it wasn't. Well, it was a little weird, I guess, but
for everyone else on the plane.
I mean, asking questions like, well, how do you know that Jesus is there in the Eucharist? I'm like, because I know, I've experienced it. And I said, okay, well, how about this? Just read John chapter 6, and just talk through that a little bit. And this guy was stunned, and literally he got off the plane faster than anybody I've ever seen him. I mean, right to the door. I should hope it didn't freak him out, but it was.
We should do a whole episode of airplane evangelization stories.
Oh my God.
I've had some great, and just other people that, I remember one lady who was just really, seemed like she was really longing for, that childhood Catholic faith that she'd fallen away from, and just had some great discussions. And
have you
I
been
am blown away by this. I just fall asleep.
Andy, as we wrap up, we usually ask our guests if they have any kind of final word of encouragement or something they want to share with our listeners, a prayer. Anything you want to share?
We're all called to be evangelizers and to go out there and be on the offensive, right? Not playing defense anymore. And just encourage people that maybe if that's not your thing, I mean, evangelization doesn't have to mean standing on the corner with a giant sign, yelling and waving your hands, find some way. There's some way that God gave every one of us a gift. to do something, and we were given that for a reason, I believe, and there's some person we're supposed to reach out to, and just want to encourage people to really pray about that and let the Holy Spirit guide you a little bit more. So
Thanks so much.
It was great to have Andy Gardner in the ODP studio to hear about how John Paul II touched his life, how he is trying to be the husband and father and the witness to the world God desires him to be, and his love for Unleash the Gospel.
And once again, before we say goodbye, if you liked this episode, please share it with your friends, your neighbors, your relatives, your Trader Joe cashier. You can also leave us a review on iTunes. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Our handle is @OpenDoorDetroit. Help us unleash the gospel. Open Door Policy was produced by Ron Pangborn and the creative team of the Archdiocese of Detroit. But they're dangerous.
I like things that are a little dangerous. I'm Father Steve Poulos with Danielle Center.
And this has been another episode of Open Door Policy.